Greetings, friends and fellow aliens. My name is David. I'm an author, obviously a YouTuber, and I'm an INFJ. And today, I want to talk to you a little bit about overthinking. I had a hard time putting this video together because I was overthinking this video. So let's discuss this. It's good. I know it seems gross, like mushroom coffee, but with all of the creamer and lots of sugar, it tastes great. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell. If you enjoy what I do, you can follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Also, if you would like to support me, my book is on Amazon. I know I'm bludgeoning you people with this book, but it's self-published. I'm the only person working towards getting this thing out there. I appreciate any and all help, so if you can buy the book, read the book, please post a review on Amazon. I would greatly appreciate it. It is a supernatural fiction story. It's pretty awesome. I'm getting great reviews. A lot of people are loving it. And yeah, so please check it out. If you're not into the book thing, that's fine. If you'd like to buy me a cup of mushroom coffee, then my Venmo and my PayPal link are down there. I would appreciate whatever scratch you could throw my way so I can continue doing awesome stuff like this. So I recently put up a poll on my community page, and thank you to all of you who have voted. And I asked what some of the top concerns or issues are for you as an INFJ. And far and away, the number one winner was overthinking. So why do we do it? And I want to explore a couple of these questions and talk a little bit about them and just kind of give the overview, the overthinking overview, I guess, as to what it's like, what it feels like, some of my personal experience with it, and see if we can come to something, either in the comments or wherever else, where we can at least put each other at ease a little bit. Know that lots of people do it. Overthinking is not just an INFJ thing. It's just anybody that has that propensity to be a little bit internal is going to experience overthinking at one point or another, it seems. I want to talk about why it happens and why does overthinking happen, basically. And also, what are the triggers? Do you have a trigger that tends to start your overthinking? And if so, how do you really identify what that trigger is and then work around it to alleviate the overthinking that happens as a result? The next things are, why doesn't it stop on its own, please? And also that downward spiral. So these are two things that tend to happen, at least from my personal experience, is that the overthinking becomes relentless, and then I just go further and further down the rabbit hole. Lastly, how to escape it and how to prevent it, which I don't think you can do. So I'll just get that out of the way right off the bat. But I want to talk about a couple things that you can do to just sort of get out of that. I guess escape it early is our goal. It's not to just be swallowed up by overthinking and then come to the realization afterwards, which has happened to me numerous times, where it was just kind of too late to get out of it. But some of the things that you can do to arm yourself so your overthinking at least doesn't last quite as long as it might tend to do. So first up, why does it happen? Why does overthinking occur? From the INFJ perspective, I think you can put it together kind of with that NITI loop, right? Now, I've done numerous videos referencing the NITI loop. I will link the original right up here. I highly encourage you, if you have not seen this video, to please check it out, because you're going to understand what spider cows are. Spider cows. Because I use a ridiculous example to just sort of illustrate what the overthinking can tend to be like, and what that NITI loop tends to be like. So the INFJ perspective on this is your intuition is gathering information about the world around you, and it is constantly working, and you're not turning it off. It is a subconscious process. You don't actually realize what's going on and what's happening. And as that's gathering information together, it's trying to put together pieces and patterns and a puzzle. So when your intuition starts putting together all of these puzzle pieces, as an INFJ, you want to make sense of it all. And to do that, remember, you're using your cognitive functions in concert. A well-balanced INFJ is an INFJ that hoovers up information with their intuition and uses your extroverted feeling, your introverted thinking, and your extroverted sensing in order to understand it and see the world the way you do, make your decisions, and everything else. So that's the well-balanced INFJ. You use all of your cognitive functions. Just because introverted feeling is low on the totem pole and in your shadow stack does not mean that it is not being used. Obviously are. You're using everything. Otherwise, you would be a very one-dimensional human being if you were just pure logic and that was that. What happens when overthinking starts is that NITI loop grabs hold. And so your intuition is bringing all this information in, and you are skipping everything and just trying to make logical sense of it with introverted thinking. Now think about those two functions, right? Introverted intuition, introverted thinking. It becomes this highly internal process with you, where you start bouncing back and forth between your introverted thinking and your intuition. It's gathering all this information. You're trying to make logical sense of it. Everything is going on up here. Nothing is coming out of the speak hole. It's all going on in the squish part. And what happens is you start to withdraw. You stay very internal. You don't want to talk about it. You don't get out into the world. You're not talking to friends. You're not doing any of those things. You just start spinning and spinning and spinning here, because those are two introverted functions. There is no extroversion taking place. There's nothing going outside of your own brain. So like a pinball, it is bouncing around in there, trying to make sense of everything, trying to make logical sense. It's not something that you're probably particularly good at anyway. And here comes overthinking. Because you will take, just like the spider cow thing, you will take the easiest, simplest thing and overthink it to death in 100 different ways, probably none of which would make any sense or are based in any kind of a reality. But your brain is going crazy trying to do it. So that's why it happens, right? Something that we're going to talk about, the trigger. Something sets off the overthinking, and it starts bouncing around in there, and you're not using anything external. You're just using that internal process. And that's when you get locked in your own head. You hear people say that all the time. Like, I'm really stuck in my own head right now. I say it all the time because I am often stuck in my own head over everything. I overthink this YouTube channel. I overthink you guys. I overthink myself. I overthink my phone. I overthink have a magical day mugs. Like, whatever it is, I'm capable of overthinking it to just a really high degree. Normally, the overthinking is going to happen when something is threatened as a loss. This is where it starts to get really crazy for you. So, for me, when I feel worried that a situation is going to change, or that I'm going to lose the dynamic of a relationship that I've built with a person, or any of those things that threaten my comfort level and that threaten the stability that I have. Remember, you're an INFJ. That judging trait, that J at the end, that means you want things to be in a certain order and you want things a certain way. You enjoy that stability. Perceivers, you guys could just like, yeah, let's go party. Don't care that the plans change, like everything's fine. And so we have a hard time with that as judgers. It's just the way it goes. So my personal trigger is when I feel that status quo and that comfort level that I've built being shaken in some way. Now, that could be something that was said. It could be something that was an event or something that somebody said to me that just shakes the foundation ever so slightly to start the ball rolling, right? Imagine a table, perfectly flat, perfectly level, and you put a marble on that table. That marble's going to stay in that spot. As soon as something alters that table just a hair, that marble starts to roll. That's when the overthinking process happens. And as it starts to roll, you notice it rolling, the table tilts more, the marble rolls faster. Welcome to overthinking and your NITI loop. So personally, my triggers tend to be relationship based and tend to be in that human to human interaction. When it took me a while as I was writing the book even, and sending chapters and stuff to other people to review and to get feedback on, it took a while to take those critiques and not take them so strongly to heart. There were times where somebody said something, and it wasn't even like a dramatic or bad thing about anything that I had written. It was just like, well, this phrasing is really weird or whatever, that I was like, screw it. I'm just going to rip everything up and just never write again. Dramatic, I know. It happens, and it's really hard to get past because I had this feeling of letting somebody down. I let myself down because I wanted to produce something better. I let a person down because I gave them something to read that felt like it was substandard or subpar. And so all of these things start this overthinking in my head. Well, I'm trying to make logical sense of all of this. How do I do it? How do I get past this? What if other people feel this way about it? What if I try to fix it and correct it and it doesn't actually work and it makes it worse? And so on and so forth. And all of this stuff is just stuck in my own head. Have you been there? What was it for you that was a trigger that set off your overthinking? When somebody has a hard time with the way I am, and numerous people have had a hard time with the way I am, I have been described at one of my jobs, actually, in a job that I really came to love, as the enigma. This woman who was my manager at the time sat me down in her office and she just said, "I don't understand you. You are an enigma." Now, these days, I just kind of own that. I'm like, all right, I'm weird. I'm an enigma. Cheers to that. This is how I work. And I know it and I understand it. And if you're my friend and you're somebody that's close to me and you know me well enough, you know that I'm just going to be the first person to admit that and be like, hey, look, I'm weird. I'm trying, but this is just kind of the way I work. We always try to improve and we always try to be better. Like, that's a thing. So we get to the trigger. We get to how it happens, right? Intuition and introverted thinking, bouncing things around, trying to make logical sense of a situation that you can't really make logical sense of because you're just stuck in here the whole time. You don't have the answer. Your intuition starts going overtime and everything else, like it just starts going crazy, and the process just snowballs. So why doesn't it stop? What is it about the overthinking that makes it just continue to go and go and go? And understand, as an INFJ, you have this introverted intuition gift, and I believe it is a gift, because that gut feeling is really important to us. We can make decisions based off of it. And honestly, if I'm being really honest with myself, and I look back at my life and the decisions I've made, my intuition has never been wrong. It's never been wrong. And so I've come to trust it, even though it may be telling me something that I don't particularly want to hear. It's hard to listen to your gut when your gut is saying this thing and you know it's true, but you know your heart's going to break over it. That's really tough. But it's important to listen. It's important to honor yourself that way and to take yourself seriously. This downward spiral of being so internal can really bleed into your life. So what happens is you can withdraw. You're not answering texts. You're not on the phone. You're not creating YouTube videos. It happens to me. You're not producing written works. You're not doing the job that you're supposed to be doing, or at least you're not doing it as well as you should be doing. You're just a bit more quiet. You don't want to be on the phone. You don't want to do these things because it is consuming your mind. This overthinking, and whatever this is, this thing that you're chewing on, your intuition and your introverted thinking is chewing on, is it feels so intense during that time. Think about what it's like if you turn on a speaker with a microphone near it, right? You get this feedback, this sound that's just like really, really intense. And it's the echo bouncing back and forth. Well, that microphone, that's your intuition. It's picking up everything around you, even stuff that you think might be imperceptible, it is picking up. And as you draw it closer to your introverted thinking, which would be a speaker, you create this feedback loop. And so the speaker is shouting at your intuition starts working harder, it starts picking up more, that's coming out of the speaker, your thinking is going crazy. Everything is just spiraling and getting louder and louder to a point where a lot of times it becomes too intense and it's just time to go cry in the shower. There has to be an escape of some kind, right? There has to be. So how do we escape it? People will give you all sorts of suggestions, and a lot of them say, well, journal and get your thoughts out. And that's perfectly well if you're the type of person that can do that. I know that when I'm overthinking, if somebody hands me a pen and a piece of paper and says, write down your thoughts, and maybe you'll be able to get them out of their head, there's a solid chance that pencil's going to have to be surgically removed from their backside, because I don't want to hear it when I'm in that state. It happens. But one of these things is true. Using an extroverted function, right? And for you, that's extroverted feeling. Way high up on the totem pole, the harmony of other people, the feelings and all of that stuff surrounding everything in the external world. That is critical to escaping the loop. And it's critical to getting you right again. Even though you're so internal in that moment, one of the best things that you can do is send a text to somebody that you trust, to somebody that you have talked to, even if they're not somebody that you're very close with, and just say, hey, I'm having a hard time right now. Can I talk to you about something? That's all it takes. A good, genuine person is going to respond and be like, yeah, of course. And then calmly say what's on your mind. And one of the things that I realized when I'm in that state and somebody close to me asks if I'm okay or what's going on in my head or what am I thinking about, my answer is more often than not, stuff. I can't seem to pin it down. And that just goes to illustrate how crazy it can get inside your own head sometimes, because everything seems so intense and there's thousands of details and it's so overwhelming. But when it's time to actually articulate it, it's like, well, it's just things. And that makes you realize that these problems and these things that are on your mind, they are very basic and they are very straightforward. They are not as complicated as your intuition and your thinking is ganging up and trying to make you feel. It's just not the case. It is straightforward. And when you bounce those feelings and those thoughts off of another person and they come back to you, they come back in a more organized fashion. It's one of the best ways to actually sort through it. I know, look, I'm not the type of person that makes a list. I'm really terrible at lists. Lists stress me out, right? I make a list, unless it's like a grocery list like that I can do. But if I make a list of the tasks that I have to do, I look at it, and if I'm even a minute late doing one of those tasks, the entire list stresses me out. I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm not doing the list. That's how it works. But doing that with somebody else who can sit through it and say, listen, these things you don't need to pay attention to right now. There's nothing you can change about them. So get them out of your head. They're just creating the noise when you're overthinking. These three things seem to be kind of more towards the source. So how can you alleviate one of them and just focus on that one thing? That extroverted feeling, that reaching out and being external with another person is the lifeline to get out of that NITI loop. One of the other ways for me that I'm able to get out of it, and this is something that I recognize, and this is what I want to talk about, shortening the time span that you spend in an overthinking state, is to ask somebody else, to get out of my own head for just a split second, send a text to somebody and say, hey, how are you? How are things right now? Because it helps me to extrovert feeling somebody else, another person. and to basically just get an idea of what they're going through, and then really hone in on my own extroverted feeling, really get a sense of what my intuition is telling me about that person and how I'm reading them emotionally, to be able to offer some advice or to just be an ear to listen to them. And I find that when I do that, it helps me escape my own head. And it helps me absorb somebody else's emotions to a degree where I can offer some help. I can feel helpful. And I can feel like I've got a little bit of that purpose back. And then the things rattling around inside my head aren't so bad anymore. Or at least not quite as loud and intense. So can you prevent overthinking? No. I don't believe that's something that you can actually prevent. But you can shorten its lifespan inside of your own head. You can make those spider cows a little less intimidating, I suppose. There's this realization that you end up coming to when you're really, really deep down in that overthinking state, where I've just started. I mean, really, it was in my recent history, started feeling myself slipping into that state. I know I'm overthinking, and I know things are really intense. And then it came to a point of, you know what, I have to accept this and let it wash over me, understand what's happening in my own head, and I know what the tool is to help me get out of it. Another part of this is, remember what I talked about earlier in this video, in regards to your intuition talking to you and telling you things that you may not want to hear. If your overthinking is part of a dynamic with another person, and that person is a person, like it's somebody that you overthink. I've been there. I do it all the time. It's just the way it goes. But it is really important to say, okay, my brain is telling me something right now, and I need to address it or I'm not going to be okay. And then approaching that person and saying, listen, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling right now. And it's really difficult for me. And I wanted to communicate with you about it. But really, that's all it takes. You don't approach another person with, you said this, and that. We don't start off confrontational, right? But it's being kind to yourself, knowing that you've got something going on in there that needs to be addressed so you are okay. You don't put that aside for another person just to not ruffle feathers. If that person values you, they'll want you to be okay too. And communicating will be a two-way street. If that person doesn't value you, then you'll bring up what's bothering you. They'll be dismissive, or tell you you're crazy, or tell you you're overreacting, or say, oh, this again, or I don't want to talk about it, or all of these different things. And hey, when somebody says I don't want to talk about it, that's a boundary, and that's one that I absolutely respect. But that does come with consequences for a personal relationship. If you don't want to talk about it, and I have to, now we have a problem. And approaching that situation calmly, I think, is really key. So understanding what's happening to you, and understanding that you absolutely have to extrovert what's going on. And I don't mean go party and go do tequila shots at the bar. What I mean is, you've got to get outside of yourself. Remember, the overthinking is too introverted, two internal processes that are going around and bouncing around. There is no escape. Your extroversion, that extroverted feeling, that's a little escape valve. It's a pressure valve. It lets the things come out, and it relieves that pressure from you so you can actually start to think clearly again. It's typically a different style video than I normally do. I hope you enjoyed this little mushroom coffee chat with me in my kitchen on a very rainy day here in Connecticut. I just wanted to do something a little bit different and kind of have a sit-down talk. I would love to know your thoughts on overthinking. Don't overthink writing a comment. Just say what's on your mind, right? What are your triggers? What is the thing that you tend to overthink the most? How do you find you're able to escape it? Are you able to escape it? Or does everything just seem so intense until you just blow a gasket and it's just all over for anybody within your vicinity? How does it work for you? Why? Why, when I put up that poll, did nearly half of the responses out of 4 or 5 choices. It just was all overthinking. This is obviously an issue with all of us, right? This is obviously something that INFJs really struggle with. And so let's talk to each other in the comments and try to work some of these things out. What are some of the tools that you do? Can you help somebody else? If you're just scrolling through and reading some comments, just a couple words of encouragement and anything else really kind of helps one another. So I appreciate you. This community is truly the best, and you guys are amazing. I appreciate all of your support. Even if you don't buy the book, though you should, because it's pretty awesome. Even if you don't buy me some mushroom coffee or tip me with a bag of candy corn, it doesn't matter. I absolutely love all of you, and I'm really glad that we're in this place together. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to enjoy the rest of mine, and I will see you very, very soon.